Okay, it's 6:30. Let's stand for the pledge, please. All right, thank you. Item 1B, approval of agenda and items for discussion.
I move that the agenda for the December 1st, 2025 special meeting be approved.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mr. Campbell. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Motion to approve the agenda and items for discussion. Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Campbell. Mr. Gogolewski.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Ms. Custodio.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries. Item 1C, approval of minutes.
I move that the minutes of the November 17th, 2025 regular meeting be approved.
Second?
Okay, motion by Mr. Campbell, support by Ms. Custodio. I think I was able to contact each of you today to let you know about that one small change to the minutes that just listed out the motion to postpone the one policy and then and the support for it for Mr. Gogolewski. So other than that, the minutes are exactly what you saw in your packet prior to the meeting. Any other discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none. Motion to approve minutes presented by Mr. Campbell, supported by Ms. Custodio. Mr. Gogolewski.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Ms. Custodio.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries. Item 1D, call to the public. As a reminder, our speakers are asked to express themselves in a civil manner with due respect for the dignity and privacy of others who may be affected by your comments. Each speaker may be limited to 3 minutes. I'll hold up this yellow folder at approximately 2.5 minutes to let you know that it's almost time to wrap up. First up, we have Jason Schaefer.
I am Jason Schaefer, by the way. I have met a few people, Jeff. Basically, my wife, you've heard her already. Chuck, appreciate your time you took with us. I've been a Hartland person here forever. I graduated in 2002. I had 3 brothers and sisters that went. My wife's had a lot of family, and basically we are just requesting a bus stop closer to our place. We sat down with Chuck. And as you guys heard, over and over, it feels like we've just kind of been swayed off. All we're asking for is basically our initial stop at the beginning of the year, which was right off Fawcett Road. The bus still goes by that location, if that's possible at all. Basically, what we're asking is just for a location for our kid to get on that's more convenient. So, I don't know if you guys have any questions or anything. Public speaking's probably my worst thing, but here I am. So, does anyone have any questions for me? Okay.
Not at this time. Thank you.
Right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Len Patilla.
Yeah, I have a few comments on Chuck's refusal to release the raw data from the parent perception survey to a city board member. Him making Mr. Scott file a FOIA request and pay $5,000 to see the data is absurd. I voted for Mr. Scott to represent me and help run the district, and he should have access to anything and everything to help him do that. I think it goes without saying that Chuck has a trust issue with many parents in the district, and rightfully so. There have been numerous cases in the past several years where Chuck has refused to be transparent, open, and honest with district parents. The one that comes to mind is the student survey from a couple of years ago. Chuck initially refused to release the questions so parents knew what he was asking the students. After a big uproar, he agreed to let them come into the office to review the questions. And then in the end, after they were leaked, he did release the questions. But that's because he was forced to. Howell was carrying out the same survey at the same time and gave parents all the questions, no questions asked. But not Chuck. He continues to choose to not be open and transparent and gives the impression that he is hiding something. Whether he is or not, he gives that impression. So what are you trying to hide in this case, Chuck? Could it be that you're cherry picking the data and the data doesn't support the claims that you've been making? Chuck, this isn't going away, and instead of creating another huge issue within the district and further eroding the parents' confidence in you, just do the right thing and give Jeff Scott whatever he wants. He's here to run the district. Hopefully, Mr. Hughes reconsiders and does the right thing on his own. The board will be discussing this issue tonight, and if Chuck still refuses to release the data, the board needs to force him to do it, as Mr. Scott is entitled to it.
Thank you. Next up is Michelle Walker-Schaefer.
Hi there. If you all remember me, I was trying to get a bus stop for my son. This time I brought a map to show, hopefully you guys can all see this. This is the map that Chuck Hughes sent me, that the bus garage sent him. Which, I don't know where the lies come from, if it comes from the bus garage, if it comes from Chuck, but I've been lied to multiple times throughout this whole scenario. So this is the most accurate one I have to my knowledge. The bus goes up Argentine Road, down Fawcett Road, down Mack, and down Allen. I live out here. This bus stop was given to me at the beginning of the year, the first day of school. And I had this bus stop for the first couple months of school. But because I pointed out to the bus garage that there's not a in-district student there, because they said they removed my stop here because there wasn't an in-district student for 14 years. So I pointed out there wasn't one here, so they took that away too. But I've requested, or who I request to, I don't know anymore at this point. If any of you can help me at the end of this and tell me who I need to talk to would be great. I'm just requesting that they give me that stop back. As you can all see, it is in the route of the bus already going there. It's a neutral ground. It's a subdivision. They pull in, open the door, they pull out. It's on a paved road. It's always plowed. It's always salted. It's a safe place. They give it to me once. I'm requesting it again. There is only 108 days left of school, 18 weeks, 5 months. That's all I'm asking for. Because next year, it's all gonna be moved back to here, four driveways from my house. Because he will be in the same school as that in-district student right there. So, if any of you can help me, who's higher than Chuck, because Chuck couldn't get it done, and all I got was lies of why I was removed originally. So, if anybody can help me after today, otherwise I have to do homeschooling for the remaining of the year, because I don't want to be driving down paved roads, back roads, unplowed roads, things like that. And we all know it's coming, it's here. So if anybody can tell me how to get higher than Chuck.
Thank you for coming and expressing your concerns and for sharing the map. I can ask Mr. Hughes to follow up with you with his team. It is up to Mr. Hughes and his team to determine this. So I can ask him to contact you and to discuss again.
Chuck is the highest because I've been lied to by Chuck and his three below him. I have lied emails from all of them about why this is happening.
Chuck, as the superintendent, he manages the day-to-day of the district, yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2A, 111825 FOIA fee appeals.
I move that the Board of Education denies the FOIA appeal number 1 received on 11/18/25 and affirms the FOIA coordinator's determination of the initial estimated fee itemization submitted on 11/17/25.
Support.
Motion from Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Campbell. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I can start us off. As many of you know, I think, I don't remember who was copied on all the emails, but as a board trustee, I had requested some information from the district regarding the parent perception survey that's conducted annually. And I was denied access to the information. And all I was asking for, and I wasn't asking for it to be shared with me personally, my specific request was that it be shared with the board. And the specific data I requested was the cross-tabulation of the racial discrimination by race and by school. Because there's a lot of data been presented to this board about racial discrimination in the school, racial conflicts in the school, and the survey data has never been released in full. So all we get is little snippets that 14% or 15% of high school students face racial discrimination, which seems off balance to me, and that's why I said I would like to see how that breaks down. And the response to that was a complete denial, no, we can't see that information. And so then I thought, well, okay, if you don't mind, just share the raw data with the board, and then we can look at it. If the district doesn't have the capability to do the cross-tabulation or doesn't want to or hasn't, whatever, just share the raw data. And that was denied as well. So that's why I was forced to submit 2 Freedom of Information Act requests to the district so that the district would disclose the raw data of the surveys along with the methodology and the interpretation of the data, which is being shared with the board and with the community. The response I received from the FOIA coordinator were 2 estimates totaling $4,926.48. So what we have before us today is a formal appeal from myself on those 2 items. I'm requesting a total waiver of fees in accordance with the Hartland Consolidated Schools Freedom of Information Act procedures and guidelines, also with the Michigan FOIA law, which gives this body the authority, the ability to waive the fees in their entirety. I'm contesting these exorbitant fees for 3 specific reasons. Number 1, the fees are excessive, as I think is obvious by the $5,000 price tag. Number 2, the release of information is in the public's best interest. And number 3, that if the board intends to deny my appeal as the motion was just read, you must also provide a basis for the denial, which is not included in the motion and is not in any of our presenting documents. So to start with number 1, excessive fees. As anyone who's ever put in a Freedom of Information Act request or reviewed the law knows, the law and our own policies and procedures dictate that hourly rates must be billed at the rate of the lowest employee capable of performing each individual task associated with the FOIA request. So it doesn't matter who performs the actual duty. So if the superintendent personally makes copies of records, we can't bill the superintendent's hourly rate. We have to bill, the secretary's hourly rate because they would be capable of hitting the copy button. So you could imagine, somebody capable, I would imagine almost any district employee would be capable of making duplicate copies. You would expect something like $20 an hour. But if you take a look at the FOIA estimates in front of you, you'll notice that the charge for copying and duplicating records, now this is not redacting records, retrieving records, just the charge for copying and duplicating records is $58.17 an hour. Okay, so the lowest paid employee that can hit the green button on the copier is $58.17 an hour. I saw that and I was kind of blown away. So I said, well, how does this compare to other districts? Especially districts that have been through FOIA lawsuits, been through the circuit courts for withholding information for the public. And I found one district that's been through the ringer a couple times, and now they're, we'll say, uber transparent with what they do, and that's Grand Rapids Schools. And so they actually publish on their website the rates they charge for each task and each department. And so their rate for the person that hits the green button on the copier to duplicate the records is $18.02 an hour. And that's for a secretary or an administrative assistant. They put that right out on their website. So anybody knows when you make a FOIA request, anything has to be put through the copier is $18 an hour. So why does Hartland need to charge more than 3 times the hourly rate to make copies? This is what the Michigan FOIA law refers to as arbitrary and capricious. Which can eventually result in legal fines to this body if we continue to act like this. It's my assertion that these fees are essentially inflated to avoid releasing information. And I hear countless stories from other individuals. We've heard people from this podium talk about it. We've heard other trustees talk about the insane FOIA estimates that are being sent out from the FOIA coordinator. Now, I'm a trustee. I have a platform to appeal. I can spend some time behind the microphone. The average citizen doesn't. And when they get an estimate for $5,000, what do they get? 3 minutes at the microphone and ignored. And they just have to go away. And so I'm trying to make a voice for all of those people as well. I'm not requesting some information about my kid or my kid's career. I'm requesting information that the public has willingly given to the school district and expects to be able to see back that parent survey data. So what about other fees? I know President Coleman and I spoke this morning, and well, yeah, you know, the copying and duplicating is different from other things. Let's see, our technology department charges $86.23 an hour. So that's like, it's like a $190,000 a year employee to search for emails. What does Grand Rapids charge? Almost exactly half of that. Their highest rate for anything in their technology department, $43.29. People might remember a few years ago, Rochester Community Schools sent a FOIA fee estimate to a parent for $33 million. That made national news. So I thought, well, why don't I compare the rates that Rochester is charging a parent for a $33 million FOIA request to what we are charging. And their highest hourly rate, and that was $46.16. So even when they came up with a $33 million FOIA, they couldn't go above $46. We are, again, at $58.17 to hit the copy button on the copier. So obviously the hourly rates are significantly higher here than we've seen in other districts. Now, the second reason I believe the fee should be waived in its entirety is that the information requested is in the public's interest. This is called a public interest waiver. It's appropriate if the release of information is in the best interest of the public. My contention is that this survey has been publicly conducted for years, that the parents of this district have willingly and willfully given up thousands of hours of their time to answer the survey questions, and therefore the data belongs to the community, not to just a few people in the district. This is a public district, a public school district. When we're conducting parent perception surveys, refusing to release results in their entirety, or even more importantly, refusing to release the methodology used to compile and analyze data. These surveys have been used to influence the community. More important, they've been used to influence this board. They've been used to influence policy decisions. They've been used to influence operational decisions over the last few years. I think it would be unethical to refuse to release the actual data. Surveys like this are conducted across the state, across the country by nearly every district. However, Hartland is unique in that we do not share the full results with the public. Why is that? Most districts hired outside professional firms to conduct the surveys or participate in group programs like the MI Student Voice. We use that group program for our student surveys. We get amazing results, cross-tabulated, dozens of pages, hundreds of pages in some cases. Why are we not doing that with a parent survey? For a public entity to flat out refuse to release data is the same as telling everyone in this community that they should just trust the conclusions, but we will not let them be independently verified. Think about that. Trust us, but you can't independently verify. One last thing about public interest, there's actually federal requirements that any survey conducted with federal tax dollars must make raw data available to the public with few limited exceptions. While this may not apply to district schools, why wouldn't we use that same threshold? That if the Hartland taxpayers are funding a survey of Hartland parents.
President Coleman, I'd like to call point of order.
The point of order I think you are calling is for duration of time for
Correct.
speaking. The
I'm
issue-
almost done.
Okay. Go ahead then.
So why wouldn't we have that same expectation that when Hartland taxpayers pay for and willingly participate in a survey, that the data be released? They, again, have contributed thousands of hours. It only makes sense. So finally, point number 3, and probably most importantly, I mean, we can talk about the other things, but I'd like to point out that the motion currently on the table is insufficient to meet FOIA law, and specifically, it does not meet the Hartland Consolidated Schools Freedom of Information Act procedures and guidelines. I don't know if you guys printed out your FOIA procedures and guidelines here, but I can refer you to page 15. Now, these are our own internal guidelines. These were developed, I don't know, probably a decade ago. And there's a whole section on fee appeals. There's 4 options of what the board can do with a fee appeal. Not one of them says simply deny the appeal and move on. That's not an option. Instead, the board must, and this is quote from our own policies and guidelines on Freedom of Information Act, the board shall uphold the fee and issue a written determination to the requesting person indicating the specific basis under FOIA that supports the required fee. The determination shall include a certification from the board that the statements in the determination are accurate and that the fee amount complies with the district guidelines, procedures, and FOIA law, unquote. So that was not in the motion. The Michigan FOIA handbook takes us one step further, indicating that the board must also certify that the fee structure complies with not only the local policy, but also Section 4 of the Michigan Freedom of Information Act. So, is this body prepared to make a certification that this is accurate? Essentially, we would have to certify, the board would have to sit here and certify that, yes, the lowest paid employee in the district that can hit the green button on the copier is $58.17 an hour. And that everybody on this board is certifying that to be true. I don't see that in what's been presented. The motion that's on the table simply says that you're denying the fee appeal, not the certification, not on what grounds, not giving any further assertion. So again, I feel that among many other things, the motion on the table is insufficient to meet both the Michigan Freedom of Information Act requirements and our own internal procedures and guidelines. Thank you.
Mr. Scott, can you tell me what that bottom line price was on your FOIA request?
So we have 2 FOIA requests that I submitted. One of them, and I did them separately for a reason. One was the information I initially requested from the district, which was just the raw data from the surveys. And that one was, I think, $850 approximately.
Yeah,
And
that's
then-
fine, just an approximate.
Yeah, and then I submitted a second request, which was essentially to identify the methodology that was used to analyze the data. And that's the one I got like a little over a $4,000 estimate on. So I believe the one the board is voting on first is it the raw data?
It is the $864.38.
So the one being voted on right now is the raw data. I mean, this is probably sitting, the surveys are conducted on Google Forms. The data is most likely sitting in a Google Sheet. I'm guessing all board members could be added, share only, non-edit, in about 13 seconds. I don't see how that would cost $850.
Well, I also think, too, that your reasons for requesting that information are valid because you do obviously have an interest in knowing how this information gets out and whether it's accurate. And it's very school board related. I would like to remind the board that about a year ago, all of my emails were FOIA'd by a political group purely for political reasons, not having to do with any kind of reason like Mr. Scott has. The documents that were FOIA'd amounted to almost 20,000 individual sheets of paper. And it was done politically by a group whose membership includes even some people in this room right now, members of administration, certain members of the teaching staff. And they were charged for close to 20,000 documents, $540. So I'm a little suspicious about the cost that's being passed on to Mr. Scott. I don't think that we can say that there's a fair distribution of estimate that is given to anyone who requests a FOIA. So for that reason, I'm a little disgusted, once again, that a board member has to beg, borrow, and steal to get information that should be presented to them.
Mr. Gogolewski, thank you for raising that point. Mr. Hughes, could I ask you to address that?
I can't address that.
Point of order. There's a motion on the table. I don't think administrators can partake in debate.
He's not partaking in debate, he's answering a question.
What's the question?
I have one.
Mr.
Asking,
Gogolewski did not ask a specific question.
okay, well,
You're
asking the administrator to address an issue is equivalent to partaking in debate.
Mr. Hughes, could you please explain to me how the cost, the estimate process has changed since the situation that Mr. Gogolewski brought up?
I can. We obviously underestimated at the time that Mr. Gogolewski's situation occurred we majorly underestimated the time that it would take to do that work. And so since then, we've made sure that we are estimating to the best of our ability. And so we use the lowest person in my office able to make the copies that Mr. Scott is talking about, and that is Renee Braden, my administrative assistant. That's her cost. And we use the lowest person in the technology department that has access and capability of getting all the information, checking for emails and all that stuff, and that is Scott Usher, and that's his cost. So those are the lowest people in our offices that are doing that work for this FOIA. So we've done that estimate in good faith, and the estimate sitting in front of you, or the motion sitting in front of you, answers Mr. Scott's concern, and that is that the board is certifying that the document you have in front of us is the best estimate that we can come up with to complete the hours of finding and answering all of his FOIA requests in his two FOIAs. Those are them. And so you're certifying that that is our estimate. If we don't hit that estimate, if it takes us a lot less time, then Mr. Scott would get his dollars back or any refund needed to do so. And that's occurred in the past with FOIAs. We reimburse people if we don't use all that time. But we certainly don't want to be in a situation like Mr. Gogolewski's, where we spent a whole lot of time, a whole lot of copies, and we underestimated. This is what we feel is a very fair estimate for what is being asked for in these two FOIAs.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, did you have something?
I appreciate Mr. Scott's research on this. If it is common practice for other districts to put this out for public view, is that something we could start the process of? Is that a consideration? And if so, maybe that's the greater answer to this, to get Mr. Scott his documents for the transparency with these surveys for others to see. Has that been a consideration? I guess the question would be, has it been a consideration of the district, and why or why not would that not be out there so that they can see that raw data if that is common practice?
Mr. Hughes, can you address that, please?
I don't believe it's common practice that when you do a survey, you put all the raw data out for everybody to look at. That's not common practice that I'm aware of. I've never been in a district where that's common practice. You take the raw data, you pull it together, and you do a report. And this is the reports that we put out, that I put out last week for the JK through 4 data, is a compilation of all of that data and what the parents have said to us. So I don't think that is common practice to put all that data out there. It is common practice to share the end result of what it is that our parents said to us.
What's the difference between electronic data and paper data? Mr. Scott, would it benefit you in your analysis if you had digital or electronic data? Do you need hard copies, or?
I don't need hard copies. I was simply asking for the raw data. And as a matter of fact, I don't have it in front of me, but I'm 99% sure my request was for in electronic format. So the estimate I got was to give me everything in paper format. I mean, can you imagine thousands and thousands, print out a spreadsheet and give it to you? I mean, these are all tactics used to avoid the ultimate transparency required under law. And as far as President Coleman, if you wouldn't mind, a couple rebuttals, since administration has been allowed to enter the debate here. I'm going to again read directly from the fee appeal handbook. This is our own internal document. Okay.
President Coleman, I'd like to call a point of order.
And what is the?
This is the third time that Mr. Scott has spoken on this motion.
No, Mr. Scott is, I think, believe answering my question.
True. It is discussion on the same motion. I'll allow you to continue to address the question that's on the table. Thank you.
It says again, the board shall do one of the following. And one of the options, if the board does not waive the fee, says uphold the fee, issue a written determination to the requesting person indicating the specific basis under FOIA that supports the required fee. There is nothing in the motion that gives a specific basis. And then the determination shall include a certification from the board that the statements in the determination are accurate and that the fee amount complies with district guidelines, procedures, and FOIA. And the and FOIA is key. What I said earlier, the FOIA law requires that the fee that's charged, the hourly rate, is the lowest person capable of completing the task. Mr. Hughes just went on the record saying he was giving the rates of the actual people performing the task. That is not what is allowed under FOIA. It is the lowest paid person in the district capable, not in his office, not who sits next to him. It is the lowest person capable. And for anyone at this table to argue we do not have an employee that's paid less than $58.17 an hour capable of hitting the green button on a copy machine is absolutely insane. So if you vote to deny the appeal, you are making the determination that $58.17 an hour is the lowest paid employee in this district capable of hitting the green button on the copy machine.
President Coleman, do we know, is there any law that says that Mr. Scott has to, utilize the Freedom of Information Act request in order to obtain the records that he's seeking?
I believe, I can't quote you a specific MCL, but I know that there is something that says that if there's information requested of a trustee that does not directly affect a board decision, a board directive, what have you, if it doesn't directly affect the trustee doing their job, that information does not have to be provided.
So do we know if this guidance was officially provided by the legal team in this particular request?
No.
Okay, so we have no legal recourse at this point that we're aware of that says we should not be providing this. And then I guess the second point I have is, part of what we're going to be looking at later includes the culture and learning environment aspect of the strategic plan, which one of the main tenets of that included parent perception survey. So as a board, I think it's certainly within, his rights to ask, and I think probably many of us should be asking for the same data as part of understanding the results from the survey, which we're including in our strategic plan. So again, I appreciate that Mr. Scott's sort of fighting for this as though he's an individual member, which I think is admirable, and we certainly need to do a better job, I think, to try to be consistent with our FOIAs. But I think we need it as board members as well. And for that, I certainly don't support the rejection of this FOIA.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
President Coleman, I just have a couple things to add. And I did respond to Mr. Scott's email with many questions and willing to have a conversation, but I never did hear back from him to have a conversation. And I also want to make the point that I spoke to a parent today in the district who reached out to me to talk about maybe a path forward for getting a more scientific method-based survey in the future, about looking at maybe, changing how we're asking parents questions. I realize what Mr. Scott is asking is what has happened in the past. But I think that, looking at what we can do in the future to, maybe improve that parent perception survey, or to make it more, change the method, I think would be a good solution, just like Mr. Campbell mentioned about maybe putting standard fees, with what we're charging for FOIA requests. But, again, it's, I know Mr. Scott took almost 20 minutes to talk about his points, but, when we receive emails from board members and we have something to discuss, I always respond and looking for a conversation, and it's unfortunate that did not happen. I believe what Mr. Hughes has put in front of us for the estimate is in good faith. I don't see any reason why. Renee does, Mrs. Braden, this is what she does. She's our FOIA coordinator. And, these dozens and dozens of these have come across her desk over the years. So for me, I feel comfortable, voting yes to uphold the FOIA fee.
Okay, thank you.
Just real quick, do we know who the FOIA coordinator is?
I believe it's Mrs. Braden.
Is that accurate? Okay. I've heard a couple different names over the years, and I think it's switched around a little, just clarifying.
I feel like looking at this is not what Mr. Scott wants. It's very laborious, so I feel like there does need to be something in place for all of this work that's going to take away from the going-ons in the district. It's approximated to be 7,000 pages of information, which is incredibly significant. Even in electronic form, that's a lot to go through, that's a lot to create. But I'm familiar with FOIA, and I know that the calculations you cite, Mr. Scott, need to be accurate, the lowest that they can be, and I feel like that needs more attention. I don't know if that part is accurate either. Double what another district charges, triple in one category what another district charges, and then there's $700 that shouldn't even be on there because that's not how they're requested. Again, I don't think that it needs to be without cost, but this maybe needs to be redone, this figure. I don't know how we would move forward with consideration for that, but we're voting on something that I don't think is accurate for what you're trying to get. Is that correct? At least the paper copy or the electronic copy?
Yeah, to be clear, the one we're voting on first is just the raw data. And that I have requested in electronic format. So I would agree with you. I don't know why somebody needs to put that on the copy machine and anything like that. It should be sharing a Google page, a Google Sheet. As far as your comment about, I think, appeal number 2 being more laborious, I would agree with you. Again, my initial request was simply for the methodology used for compiling and analyzing the data. And when I was denied access to that, I put together a list of questions that I thought would help me find the methodology used to compile the data. So if one was to believe that we should have access to the raw data only and not the more laborious one, then I think it would be appropriate to grant a fee waiver on number 1 and maybe have another discussion on number 2.
So, may I again, President Coleman? I'm sorry, if anybody else doesn't want to go. I think on the methodology, the question would be, what would you do with that? Unless you're in a place to be able to figure out what's accurate on methodology for surveys, maybe that's not our role, and we need to venture out and maybe spend money as a district to come up with a better survey that's going to do better for us. But again, you get all this information, and it's like, well, what do I do with this now? It's a lot of work for what's going to be the outcome of that, I think, for what it demands.
I do believe, though, that the information that Mr. Scott is requesting is pertinent in allowing him to do his job as a board member. And again, we've encountered over the last 3 years, myself, numerous roadblocks to gathering just raw information. And this is why this request to deny the FOIA, I think, is an absolute travesty here. I really do.
President Coleman, is there, if this is not what he's looking for on here, is there a reason why this needs to be discussed or finalized today? If we're talking about paper and he's saying electronic, I feel like there needs to be further communication than at the board table.
Well, I don't have the guidelines printed in front of me, so maybe Mr. Scott could help me with this, but I know that it is required that within a number of days after the appeal is submitted, that it is brought to the board for discussion, and then I believe there's a window of time after that, if it's at 10 days, to provide a determination.
10 days.
So we can discuss tonight. However, we don't have another regularly scheduled meeting until 2 weeks from now, which is 14 days. So that window of time would present an issue with respect to providing a decision tonight if we postponed. Does that sound accurate to your understanding?
To my understanding, that would be accurate. There needs to be a decision tonight.
Where does that say, I'm sorry, just to be clear, for clarity, for myself, I understand this, 2A, the motion we're on right now, it is quoted at $850, and it's to get the raw data for a period of 3 years in electronic format?
I don't know if I have the actual request in front of me. I can pull it up.
Yeah, it says I think this email was from your appeal email, but it it lists raw data obtained from the parent perception survey in original electronic spreadsheet format to include anonymized individual responses, including but not limited to questionnaire answers, timestamps, IP addresses, and any metadata. Data processing records, including logs or scripts showing how responses were cleaned, aggregated, and analyzed, i.e. exclusions of incomplete surveys, weighting methodology, et cetera. You also requested statistical analysis files, including any calculations, formulas, or software outputs, including Excel, Sheets, or similar software, used to interpret results, including error checks or validation steps. And lastly, audit or review documents, including any internal or external audits, quality checks, or validations of the survey process or data. It's not just raw data that's included in this request.
Well,
Does
it'd
that
be
sound
any-
accurate?
I mean, any data used, so if they use some statistical software to compile this, or an Excel spreadsheet, whatever, I tried to ask I tried to ask the questions of how the results were tabulated and didn't get an answer. So the request is broad enough to cover whatever means were used. My guess was it's an Excel spreadsheet, but if they used a computer software, then I would want to see those original reports as well, but all of that electronic.
I mean, I'm sorry, but on its face, raw data is, we have, 5,000 answers yes for question 1, 7,000 answers 2, no. But you get into the weeds on this and it seems to be overreaching. That's the initial thought. IP addresses. I mean, what would you do if you find out that I logged in from Starbucks or the comfort of my own couch at my house? And how would you find out what those IP addresses come back to? So you look at this now and it's not, I just want the multiple choice answers tabulated. Formulas or software outputs. That goes back to initially asking, who's asking for this? If it's just, Mr. Smith, what are you going to do with this, I guess, too? I think that's where we need to evolve from just us coming up with this survey to maybe using a company that is accredited and tasked with this routinely to do this a little bit better. Because I don't know what we would all do with this, but to take the time from the district, from routine activity to make the district, the students, the staff succeed, to find out what the IP addresses are that parents access to give answers to this. I don't know why you need that.
Would you like me to respond?
Yes, sir.
Please.
So again, my initial request as a board member was for the cross-tabulated data on the racial discrimination question by school. That was my initial request. When that was denied, I asked for the raw data. That was denied. So I created a FOIA request that I thought could capture all of those items, and that's what has been presented here today. So I guess we're talking about two different things. Are we saying every board member should have access to all of that information all the time? No, not necessarily. I think any of us would have been happy with the raw data or the cross-tabulation that was initially requested. Now, if you want to get into the weeds on why I'd like to evaluate that, we can. I mean, there's I believe flaws in the survey that lead to problems with how the survey data was created. We can get into that. I don't think this is the place for it. And so that's one of the reasons I requested some of that information. My guess is, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that none of that exists other than an Excel spreadsheet that cherry picks a couple items that want to be included. So if the district actually were to produce any of those other than the raw data, I guess I would be shocked, but maybe it exists.
I just think, I'm sorry, last thought. I agree that on the face, hearing access to anything and everything, I agree with that. But then you get into the nuts and bolts of it and just the fine print of everything that's being asked. I do not agree with the cost, but I do not agree also with the depth of which data is to be reviewed. To what end? That's where I'm at, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Keller?
Yep, sorry. Thanks for the opportunity to speak again. I guess I hear everyone's points, but I think some of that is muddying the water. And what I mean by that is I don't think the purpose of this question today is for us to just sit here and speculate or even ask Mr. Scott directly, instead of what's the purpose of your FOIA? We're here to decide whether or not what we're looking at, if that data is accurate to the best of someone's ability to fill out, right? And so I think that's the question we need to be answering. I go back to even further and say, why does Mr. Scott even have to submit a FOIA for information that I think as a board should be provided? So again, given that we don't even have a legal, and I apologize, President Coleman, I know you and I spoke this morning, and I just getting back from vacation, so I didn't have a chance to even ask you my questions because I didn't have them yet. But kind of talking through this, the question that came to my mind is, what legal basis do we even have to reject this to Mr. Scott in the first place? So absent that, I don't know how we can do anything but deny the motion, which would mean that he should be allowed to have the information.
I will suggest one thing, and I took our legal team offers a FOIA class, right, that I took a couple months ago. And one of the first things they say is, hey, when a district gets a request like that, the first thing you do is pick up the phone and call the requester and say, hey, what are you looking for? Let's figure out a way to get you what you want without it taking dozens of hours of our time or hundreds of dollars of your money, right? In this case, that step never happened. It just came to the table here in front of us because you were the first person to ask the question, Mr. Campbell, what are you looking for? So I guess I would commit if the vote tonight is to waive the fees, I would absolutely work with district personnel to limit I don't want anybody to waste their time, okay? Again, my initial request was simply for some cross tabulations. So I would commit to working with district personnel to make the request take as little time and effort as possible, especially on the raw data. Again, I'm guessing that request number one is probably access to one or two spreadsheets. I don't think there's any audit logs or more complicated data analysis here. But if that helps, I will commit to trying to make the time investment as low as possible for district personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Given that, and given all of the potential questions and different directions that this can go, I'm frankly at a bit of a loss. We've talked about changing the fee structure or adjusting the fees. The motion, obviously, or the appeal is to waive the fees entirely. Mr. Scott has offered now to, if the appeal is upheld, that he would work with personnel to try to find the least cost-effective way to proceed. And then there was a fourth option that I've now lost. But I'm not sure, given the constraints of what we have to do with respect to the FOIA process to follow the law, I don't know how much flexibility we have with whether or not we make a decision tonight, if we can make modifications to make a subsequent decision. I'm unfortunately, yes, you may. Please, Renee, if you've got some input that might shed some light, it would be appreciated.
Some options.
Okay.
Do not have to come up to our procedure is within 10 days
Point of order. Point of order. We're in a public meeting. We can't have private
You'll have to
conversation.
speak at the podium.
Point of order.
Okay,
Point of order.
okay. Sorry. Mrs. Braden indicated that there are options, but I was unable to discern exactly what those options would be. My apologies. I thought, Renee, you were going to speak at the podium so that the room could hear. My apologies.
So, question, within 10 days, you have to either ask for another extension or fulfill the FOIA. Is that accurate?
No, yet my understanding from our policies and guidelines is that within 10 days, we need to either waive the fees or uphold the fees and issue a certification that, yes, this is, the most cost.
And that 10 days is after it's been brought to the board.
My understanding is that the appeal, even though I emailed the appeal to the board 2 weeks ago or whatever, it is assumed to have been received officially tonight by us collectively as a board. So, yes, 10 days.
10 days from now.
Correct.
Which means we have to vote on it.
Sure. Hold on just a second. Mr. Hughes.
So the bottom line is, yes, again, the board tonight is certifying if you vote in favor of the motion on the table, you're certifying that what we have provided Mr. Scott on the cost to find what he's looking for is the best of our ability. That's what our itemization is. That's your certification there. So Mr. Scott, within 10 days, would get a letter stipulating that on this night, the board made a vote of X, and that vote denied your request to throw away the cost. So he would get that, and we would say the reason being is that the itemization is to the best of our ability. And if we don't use that itemization, that number, you'll get a refund.
Right.
That's what the board is doing tonight. Now, the board tonight, the option the board could say, we don't, we agree with this, but you could amend that and say, okay, since Mr. Scott has been adamant that it's simply electronic, that you, on option one, for instance, the board says, okay, we waive the copying costs and the paper costs. And so we waive that $58.17 and $50, and we'll use the top. And again, if Mr. Scott is able to say, okay, I think I heard him tonight, and again, I don't know that to be true, but I just need X in an electronic format, then we would do our best to put that electronic format together, figure out how much time it takes to do so, and get him his response and what the final cost is. So tonight's certification is simply, the itemization is accurate to the best of our ability, what we've told you, the board. You either certify that you trust that that's our best itemization, or you don't. And you guys decide what to do with that. So my recommendation, based on what I've heard, is
Point of order. When nobody's asked for your recommendation, you're not here to add your recommendation.
there's options.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Again, I would just like to clarify that you're certifying that the lowest person in the district capable of making a copy is $58.17 an hour, among many other things. I don't believe, it just sounds like, the board and the district has had at least 2 weeks to review my appeal, to ask questions, to try to negotiate, to reach out to me and say, hey, how can we do this? How can we do this? And nobody has done that. And so we're trying to negotiate at the board table. I have made an offer, and I will repeat it, that I will work with the district to keep the time investment as low as possible to get the raw data and make that available to the community.
Thank you. We had an offer from Dr. Green, who happens to be in the room to join us for our closed session later this evening. if you can provide, is there any additional insight that you may provide?
It's it's an interesting question, interesting dilemma, a lot of really good points being brought up by all parties, including the superintendent. And one of the things about the estimate of the costs is that usually it's only 50%, right? You pay 50% and then you figure out the actual costs and whatever. Another option, just for everybody's interest here, Jeff, would be you could withdraw this request and you could then put in a new request for what you really want and do that in writing. And then the other thing the board could ask the superintendent to do is to review the fees and just double check and make sure, like, hey, we're doing this according to the things that have been brought up tonight. It sounds all interesting, but that would be one option, because I heard you talking about, negotiating and what do you really want and how does this work like electronic, and you don't really need all the IP addresses and all of that other stuff. So FOIA is a very interesting law. If this gets denied, you can request again. You don't have to have, and obviously if somebody does frivolous requests, that can be brought to the court and things like that. There are situations where people have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of requests, which are unfortunate when that happens. I don't think that's what's been happening here. There's not hundreds of requests out there. So that would be an option, and then you start over on this whole thing, and that was my 2 cents, so I apologize.
And, we have been down that road before with previous FOIA requests I've made, and that was kind of the decision of the board, like, hey, we'll work this out. Again, the fact that it has to come to the table to have a discussion, that nobody reached out to have this discussion earlier is the issue. I'm not going to withdraw request number 1. I will, like I said, work with district personnel to make sure there's as little time commitment on the district's behalf as possible. But I don't believe there's any way that this board can affirm $58.17 an hour to make copies. That does not meet the FOIA laws. It doesn't meet the spirit of the FOIA laws. And I will not withdraw number 1. I may consider withdrawing number 2 when we get there.
President Coleman, just a quick question. If he wants to work with district personnel, if the FOIA request is in, does the district have an obligation to do everything that's on there once it's, or are they able to work together to change that once they've started the process?
So you're asking, does the district have to follow to the letter the request as it is submitted?
Correct.
I believe that the district, yes, does try to meet. They need to try to meet all of the requests, and where there is no information to provide, like if one of these points that I read earlier is not available because they didn't use a different platform or what have you, then the district would need to just stipulate this item is not available.
So would the district be able to negotiate then based upon the black and white email that they already have as a request?
I don't know.
I don't think so. I think we're voting on what was in the email, right? That's in the appeal. I see Renee shaking her head. Yeah, right. So it's what we have in front of us.
I'm just thinking from what Dr. Green said, right, about being able to withdraw it and then change it based upon the verbiage that has
That's
come
still
at this table.
Right.
So if that's an option, is the district able to then go and negotiate back and forth with Mr. Scott once they have it? It's either, is it all or nothing, or is that allowed?
I'm uncertain if that is allowed, but Mr. Scott has committed that he would be willing to work with the district on finding the most cost-effective way to do it.
Correct. And I mean, again, I assume this is a couple spreadsheets. I don't believe any statistical software was used. If the spreadsheets don't contain the items that are on the request, then they don't contain them.
Well, Mr. Scott, you bring up a very good point. Why can't we just simply get confirmation now that the information was on an Excel spreadsheet? What's the big mystery?
I don't know. Mr. Hughes, can you share, do you know what format the data is in currently, the raw data?
The raw data is in Google, so it's in Google Docs, and then we download that to Excel to use it for ease of use.
Yeah, I wish there was some kind of amendment you could do, Mr. Scott, or rescind it and resubmit. I understand your reluctance to do so because it's just kicking the can down the street and you may think you'll never get the information, but if it is just a couple of sheets and truly the raw data, the first sentence, nothing else, no timestamps, no methodology, no formulas, no IP addresses, again, if it was just the raw data, done, but it's just the content. I mean, cost too, but just the content. I wish it was different things we could vote on here for this, but it's just principle and part of everything you want from finding out what I just mentioned.
It sounds like it's been confirmed that we're talking about probably a Google sheet for each school and a Excel spreadsheet for each school. I don't know how that equals $864 or how putting that on 500 sheets of paper is going to do any good.
Completely agree, but again, getting into the weeds, you want anything and everything, and that's what's taking so long and tying up district personnel to give you all of that. It's not just a copy, paste, forward, send, which maybe should have been done initially, just to share the data. What are we hiding? That's the problem I can see with this as well, but it's not that. They got to look at timestamps. They got to tell you the methodology. They got to tell you the formulas. So that's it. I'm sorry. Mrs. Shaw.
I would assume the formulas are in the Excel spreadsheet.
Mr. Hughes, are the formulas?
Timestamps are likely on the Google sheet when the surveys were returned. I don't think I'm requesting anything that's not on either one of those documents. It sounds like it's maybe 2 documents per school, so.
What we need to do is either vote on what we have or you have to rescind it. We can't line item and change what we have in front of us. It has to be one or the other. So we either vote on what we have after an hour and 10-minute discussion, or you rescind it and you resubmit.
President Coleman, may I direct you to ask a question of Mr. Hughes? I'd like to understand in this particular request, what would the actual redaction be if there's no personal information involved? Based on how I read this, I'm trying to understand where would there ever even be any level of redaction necessary?
Mr. Hughes, could you answer that?
I have no idea. We haven't done the work. See, this is the other thing. We haven't done the work. We haven't pulled all these documents together to figure out what it is, how much time it actually is going to take. We haven't figured out what might have to be redacted, we have to review them. We have to make sure we go through line item, page by page, to make sure there's nothing in there that might be a violation. So it's all an estimate of time. We don't know. We haven't begun starting the work.
But something must have went into the estimate, right?
Yeah.
Someone had to think through, okay, what am I going to need to do? It's going to be approximately this, but I don't know what this is that was going through the person's head that filled this out. So again, I don't understand why we even have to be sitting here talking about this, because I think we should just give them the data. And I don't understand how legally we can not give the data to Mr. Scott. But let's say all that's above board and we can do that. I don't think there's enough stuff in front of us to certify that we aren't violating these other laws and issues that Mr. Scott brought up with, are we charging the correct hourly rate? Again, not heard how that's even accurate, so I don't understand how we can accept this motion. Sure, maybe there's some things that we would tweak, but the way this motion is written, I certainly wouldn't be comfortable voting in favor of it, because there's not enough information.
I have to agree with Mr. Keller on that.
I mean, it comes to my attention that we're, as we talk this out, we're talking about 10 spreadsheet files. And on here, that's $700 to locate and retrieve 10 spreadsheet files.
Well, again, it's an estimate based on all the detail that you had requested. And again, it's an estimate. If there is no redacting required, that 1 hour that was estimated would not be necessary, so that $58 would not be necessary. We've already talked about copying and duplicating records, that there's no paper, so that 1 hour that was estimated for copying would not be required, that $58.
Yeah, but you would still have to certify that the lowest paid employee capable of making a copy is $58 an hour. That's the whole reason we're having this discussion. And again, this isn't just for me and my FOIA, it's for any of the community members who put together a FOIA request and get presented with estimates like this, or the mother in Rochester who got a $33 million estimate, or the reporter in Grand Blanc who just got a $160,000 estimate. I mean, this is an epidemic of these inflated estimates to stand between the community and transparency. And I'm bringing it to everyone's attention. And so if people want to sit here and vote that, yeah, we got to pay $58 for somebody to hit the green button on the copier, then they can do that. But I'm asking for a waiver because I believe the information is in the public's best interest. And again, the details of the request are just to ensure that I get all the information and not, like it always is, where it's redacted, it's cherry-picked, you're getting partials, this and that. If, as Mr. Hughes said, there's a Google form sheet and there's an Excel spreadsheet, I want to see both.
Okay, if there's no further discussion and there's no motion to amend or to rescind, then we need to move forward with a vote. Again, the motion on the table is for FOIA fee appeal number 1, received on 11/18. Motion brought forward by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Campbell. Mr. Gogoleski.
No.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
No.
Mr. Scott.
No.
Ms. Custodio.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Motion carries. Moving on to this second appeal.
I move that the Board of Education denies the FOIA Appeal Number 2 received on 11/18/25 and affirms the FOIA Coordinator's determination of the initial estimated fee itemization submitted on 11/17/25.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Campbell. Discussion on the motion. Obviously, a lot of the discussion we've already had applied to both motions.
Yeah, I'd say if the board has decided that $58 an hour for hitting the green button is appropriate, then I guess it is what it is. It sends quite a message to this community and to where we all stand on transparency.
And I also think that we're going to have to look into this legally, too, whether we use the board attorneys, but there are some legal clarifications that need to be made, and this really smells.
I'd like to revisit this with you, Mr. Scott. I'll reach out to you by the end of the week and ask for the raw data. I think we start there and see what we get and see how that goes.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on appeal number 2? Hearing none, moving forward with the motion for FOIA appeal number 2, received on 11/18, brought forward by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Campbell.
Actually, I think I do have a little bit more discussion. Just so everybody understands what initiated all of this. And I was going to try to stay out of it for the purposes of this discussion, but I think maybe it's appropriate that we understand why I started asking questions. You know, the first set of questions I sent into the district regarding the survey were simply about, you know, how the questions are selected. Are they asked the same every year? Are they changed? How is the scale created, et cetera, et cetera. And the answer I got was that, oh yeah, the questions are the same every year. And you know, we see a presentation at least once a year, or information goes out to the community at least once a year about the different schools, and hey, you know, this percentage of students are bullied. This percent of students are racially discriminated against. And, you know, actually, it was President Coleman and I were on the phone this morning, and she said, well, the question is worded as racial conflict, not as racial discrimination, or vice versa. And I said, no, the question is worded as racial discrimination, not racial conflict. So we looked at the surveys, and oh, guess what? Depending on the survey, the question is worded differently. So it's not the same questions every year. So when the district sends out information to the community that said the school was this racist this year and this racist last year, well, a lot of that has to do with how the question is worded and how it's changed. You cannot use data like that. That's why I am requesting this information. Right? And I don't want it to, my goal is not to make it a public thing, but for the board to sit here and say, no, you can't have access to this information. Nobody gets to see this information. We hide this information unless you pull out your wallet as a board member, as an unpaid board member, pull out my wallet and pay money to see the results for a survey that is absolutely, in my opinion, manipulated, is absolutely ridiculous. Furthermore, with the survey, there are 12 Likert style questions. Anybody familiar with the Likert scale? You know, if you've ever bought a car, you're leaving the dealership and the salesman says, hey, you're gonna get a survey from GM or Ford or whatever, and you know, on a scale of 1 to 5, how happy were you with my service? If you can't give me all 5s, you know, let me know what we can do to fix it. Everybody's been in a situation like this. So the survey questions are asked on a Likert scale, but on a 2 to 5 scale, not a 1 to 5 scale. And everybody says, well, no, how could that be possible, a 2 to 5 scale? Because 1 is don't know or not available. There is, and I have said this, there is no scholarly research, there is no evidence that a Likert scale can be properly conducted on a 2 to 5 scale, or with the research all points to the fact that a don't know or not applicable should be a separate answer or a neutral middle answer. All right, so these 12 questions are all, again, on a 2 to 5 scale. These are the questions I initially started asking that led to a $5,000 estimate, because I'm asking questions like this, like who comes up with a survey with a 2 to 5 scale? All right, now, we've already discussed the fact that the survey questions change from year to year, even though it's been said they don't. So you cannot compare one question from one year to another year if the question changes. That's basic, like anybody who took Stats 101. We could go find a high school junior who's taking a stats class and ask them, if we ask the same question one year, change the question the next year, can we compare the results? No. Yet we, as a board in this community, get that kind of manipulated data. It's inappropriate. Furthermore, questions 1 through 10 on the Likert scale are all asked about the school, the district, culture, teachers, etc. My school is welcoming, my teachers are great, my administrators are great, etc. 1 through 10, the correct answer, the best answer for the district is a 5. Yes, I agree, my teachers are great. Yes, I agree, the culture is great. And then all of a sudden, the questions 11 and 12, that have to do with racism, racial discrimination, and bullying are asking questions about students. We've gone away. Now when we're going to talk about bad things, it's not about the school, it's not about the state, it's about the students. And it says, my student faces racial discrimination. Now you've just put fives, five, my school's great, my school's great. And then there's a question about racial discrimination. What I want to see in this data is the straight lining, the people that answer all fives, because those people that go through and answer all fives are saying this district is great. But our interpretation of that data is, this district is great, but the students are racist and they're bullies. That's what all fives gets you. Now, who would design a survey where answering all fives would say, my teachers are great, my school is great, my administrators are great, there's great culture, all this, but the students are racist bullies? The best answers for the school accurately would be fives for the first 10 questions and then twos. And think about that. You're doing a survey and it's 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, then reverse polarity on the question to 2. That is the worst possible survey methodology. That is why when I started asking questions about this and was denied answers, was denied access, was told it's the same from year to year, and then asked for the raw data, I'm denied, given a $5,000 estimate, because we can't admit that there's problems with this survey and it's being manipulated. And parents are not being given a chance to even see what the results are. Neither is the board. So that's what you guys are all voting to hide tonight. To hide behind manipulated surveys that make students look bad. And so I'm here to stand up for the students.
Mr. Campbell and Mr. Scott, you guys mentioned on the previous one, possibly getting together and kind of working through some of that. Would you two be willing to have a discussion offline and maybe come to next month's, or I guess it would be at least 5 days before the next month's agenda is set, and send something off to Ms. Coleman so we could have this as an agenda item for next month, so we can, because I do think this is an important subject. I know the FOIA was already denied, but I think it would still be pertinent for this board to understand some of these very valid questions that you bring to the table.
Yeah, I think that's the intent, to move forward as quickly as we can, so that's why I'll reach out by the end of this week. Will we have it by the next meeting? I don't know. We'll give you an update, though. But, Mr. Scott, you're incredibly mistaken and wrong. Speaking for myself, I'm not voting to hide or manipulate anything, so let's not be too emotionally driven while we talk, because I told you I'd reach out to you to help you get that information and make this better. So I agree that survey is not accurate for how it's written, but so you can speak for yourself, but I just want to correct it for myself that's not the position. I want to put that raw data out. Again, sentence 1 I support, but not the rest of that. So, but yeah, let's move quickly together and see if we can get that information out, and then also improve the survey.
And I will also sort of echo what Mr. Campbell said. You make a lot of blanket assumptions and saying things from a factual basis. We are not methodologists. We are not statisticians. And basically, because you don't like how the questions were asked, you're making the assumption that things are being hidden and that we're being lied to. And there's no factual basis to that whatsoever. If there was a conversation that happened, instead of demanding information or demanding what you want, instead of having a conversation to understand or to ask, why did you ask these questions and why did they change, and help me understand, maybe we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this for an hour and a half. So again, making blanket assumptions that we are trying to hide because you have a right to vote the way that you want, I have a right to vote the way that I want, and I'm not voting to hide anything. The fact that you don't like the way the questions were written, and you don't like the fact that we are showing in some of the data that we may have issues in some of our buildings that administrators and principals use to try to see what parents think is going on in our buildings. We're not submitting this to a publication that's peer-reviewed for a scientific study. Administrators are using this to see what parents think is going on in our buildings. I still have the floor. And I'm not saying it's perfect, and I think that we can look at making it better and make it more, change the method, make it more scientific. But we, sitting up here, are not those people to do that. We don't have the education or the background to do that. And to say because they put questions in certain orders, what you're saying is factually incorrect, that the data is being manipulated and we're being lied to. That is not true.
Mrs. Shaw, just for the record, I can tell you that professionally, some of us up here do have that experience of working with surveys and survey science. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Gogolewski.
I hope, what I'm hearing is that there's a commitment to put this raw data out there. I hope that is the case. I also hope it changes the fact that when board members ask for information, they're given information, not blocked at every turn. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, and nor words in mine. The data was used to justify 2 agreements with the Department of Justice, all the DEI stuff we went through, everything that tore this community apart for the last 4 or 5 years. And now I'm saying, hey, we need to look at this and get the real data. I'm not claiming there's no such thing as racism or racism in our schools, not at all. I'm questioning why we get a report that 15% of the high school students are, have been racially discriminated against, and they won't release the cross tabulations by race. That was my initial question. That's all I asked for. Data that in any other survey would have been at the top of the pile. I don't claim to be a statistician. I'm just asking for the data. So to be denied, and denied again is frustrating. And I really hope there's a commitment. I know there's been a lot of talk at this table tonight to release that raw data, even though the FOIA was denied, and I hope that happens. I do.
Just a couple points of clarification. The vote that we made wasn't denying a FOIA per se, it was denying an appeal for the fee on a FOIA. So the board doesn't have the authority, I don't think, to deny fulfilling a FOIA, but we can deny an appeal for a fee. I think the tendency to oversimplify and for a specific example, for Mr. Scott to say, all I'm asking for is raw data. Yes, the initial email included, I think, 5 or 6 questions. And I believe most all of those questions were answered or addressed, except for providing the data.
Correct. And the cross tabulation.
So when you say, all I'm asking for is this, and it's denied, it's an oversimplification of a whole lot of conversation that's gone on, a whole lot of exchange between board members and Mr. Hughes. Also, the assumptions of manipulated data, the assumptions that you're putting forth, saying that the survey was manipulated or adjusted or questions added or changed specifically to serve certain purposes, you don't have any facts to base that on. It's your assumptions, and I get it, it's your theory. I'm not completely discrediting that, but it's assumptions because you don't have the facts to back that up. And that's where I struggle with a lot of this, particularly with the depth and breadth of the second appeal that we're talking about, the much larger scope, to do a search, to search for all of the emails that pertain to the parent perception survey. You would have to do a search, not just on those 3 terms together as a single search term, but also separate and in combination with other things. So it would produce an incredible amount of data and email and information that would then have to be gone through, sorted, redacted, et cetera, whether or not things were provided to you electronically. But if they were electronic, something tells me they would need to be in a searchable PDF. So that would also present extra steps and extra work. So I know that not all of that applied to the first one, so I wanted to say some of that out loud with this one. I know you and I talked about some of those points on the phone today, and I just wanted to share that with the team.
But what the board is, we've talked about a lot of stuff, and 99% of it's irrelevant to what's being voted on. What the board is voting on is to uphold an estimate which charges $58 an hour to copy a piece of paper. That is ultimately what we're voting on tonight, okay? You take everything else and put it aside. We're voting on, is it within our policies and guidelines and the laws of the state of Michigan to charge someone $58 an hour to copy a piece of paper? And we just had four board members vote before that, yes, that is within the laws and within the FOIA policies, and we'll take a second vote. But all that other stuff is irrelevant. Is it within the laws of the Michigan Freedom of Information Act and our written policy to charge 3 times what other districts charge to hit the green button on the copy machine? That's the question, honestly. That's what it breaks down to.
Just to put it in summary here, this whole issue is nothing more than a symptom of a much bigger issue, that transparency is sorely lacking in this district, period. Thank you.
Any further discussion or commentary? Motion on the table is for FOIA Appeal Number 2, received on 11/18/25. Motion was brought forward by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Campbell. Mr. Gogoleski?
No.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Mr. Scott?
No.
Ms. Custodio?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries. Moving on to item 3, closed session request, Superintendent Mid-Year Progress Report discussion.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the request of the superintendent, enters into closed session under Section 8(1)A of the Open Meetings Act to discuss the superintendent's evaluation.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Campbell. Any discussion on the motion? As we all know, that's Mr. Hughes' right to request the closed session to discuss his job performance. All right, motion to go into closed session brought forward by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Campbell. Mr. Gogoleski?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Custodio?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Motion carries.
Can I remind the audience, Cam, you're going to delay or pause, and then we'll come back after closed session, and we have some business to take care of, right? All right. Deputy Chuff, good night.
Okay, thank you.
And go into our private session. Can we officially maybe take a 5-minute break before that?
Absolutely. Fabulous idea. Let's take a few minutes. We'll reconvene in the conference room in CO. on. Moving on to item 4, approval of superintendent mid-year progress report.
I move that the Board of Education approves the superintendent's 25-26 mid-year progress report as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mr. Campbell. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to just say, appreciate everyone's time in there, and thank you, Mr. Hughes, for the evidence of effort. I think there's still some things that I would like to have seen that got put in there, and for that, I kind of feel like my input was sort of dismissed or, swept under the rug for various reasons, and so I have some concerns about it.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Anyone else?
Just to echo Mr. Keller's sentiments, I think that for the last 3 years that Mr. Keller and myself have been on the board, we have continually been, and I hate this word, and I'm going to say it, but I just hate it, marginalized. And I think that continues today. And also that I'm not real happy with the format of this evaluation process. And I just hope that we are open at a later date next year to exploring other methods of doing evaluations. That's it.
Yeah, I thought there was some great conversation that came from the meeting, but my ultimate problem is that ultimately the document we're approving, I don't believe reflects the conversation we had in the room, and I can't support it.
Any further comments? I appreciate everyone's time and effort in the closed session. It's not easy, but I appreciate Mr. Hughes, Dr. Green, walking us through the process, and all of your contributions. If there's no further discussion, we'll move forward with the vote. This is approval of superintendent mid-year progress report. Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Campbell. Mr. Gogolewski.
No.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
No.
Mr. Scott.
No.
Ms. Custodio.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries. Future meetings, we've got December 15th. Our regular meeting for December will be here at 6:30. Next on the books is January 12th, our regular meeting in January. I will be reaching out to the board to start fishing for some dates for that policy, the next policy committee meeting. It will be January. I'm not trying to squeeze a third meeting into the short month of December. Any information items from anybody? The only thing that I have is just a reminder, there are 2 items right now that were discussed at the last meeting that we'll be voting on at the next one. That's the 26-27 high school and legacy HVA curriculum guides, all those changes, as well as the bus purchase from the 2020 bond funds. So if you have any questions, please reach out to Chuck or his team to address those concerns so that you're well informed coming into that meeting in 2 weeks.
I have 2 real quick things, if we may. One, go see The Night Before Christmas. I saw the sneak preview at Christmas in the Village, and it was an awesome play. So get the word out and go see that. And 2, this was my first year experiencing the Reaching Higher program at Oar Creek, and it was amazing. The graduation was last week, and I know they expressed an interest in trying to get into more districts. So my recommendation would be talk to your friends and board members in other districts and spread the word about Reaching Higher. Amazing program, happy to talk about it offline. My son went through it. I got to watch, 20 or 30 kids. It was just an amazing experience for students, parents, staff, mentors, and a great program. So thank you.
Yeah, super cool program. All right, anything else? Okay, we are adjourned, 9:47.